In a world plagued by darkness, they emerge as beacons of hope. They are the survivors, the ones who faced unimaginable horrors and lived to tell their stories. Their stories are chilling, their experience is harrowing. In their resilience lies inspiration. Thank you for joining the Spooky Lab as we delve into the minds of these extraordinary individuals, unraveling the secrets of their survival. Here are 7 serial killer survivors. Number 7. Maria VIRICHEVA. In 2002, Maria VIRICHEVA, who was 19 years old and 3 months pregnant at the time, met Russia's most infamous serial killer, Alexander Pikushkin. The reason why he was known as the chessboard killer was because in 2007, he was caught and charged with 48 murders. When authorities searched his home, all 48 of those murders were marked with dates of his kills on a chessboard. Maria VIRICHEVA was at a metro station when she was approached by Alexander Pikushkin. She was looking for work and he had offered her some work. When they arrived at Pikushkin's designated spot, he pushed her down a gigantic 30-foot well. Miraculously, she managed to avoid drowning and climbed all the way to the surface where someone heard her cry for help. What's frustrating and mind-boggling about Maria's terrifying experience is that the police didn't even investigate after reporting it to them. She was only brought in to identify Pikushkin in 2007, long after he had committed many more murders. Number 6. Whitney Bennett. In 1989, Richard Ramirez, otherwise known as the Night Stalker, entered a home through an open window. Whitney Bennett, who was just 16 at the time, had to endure this terrifying experience. After he entered through the window, he attacked her and beat her so severely that she needed cosmetic surgery. After the terrifying and disgusting incident from Ramirez, he stole Whitney Bennett's jewelry and fled. Shortly after, Ramirez then broke into another woman's home, attacked, and killed her. Thanks to Bennett's emotional testimony in court, she was able to help put the devil-worshipping man away for good and also receive the death penalty. He was executed in 2013. Number 5. TERESA Thornhill. For 2 decades, a disgusting man by the name of Robert Black spent 2 decades preying on young girls in the United Kingdom. In 1988, Black pretended he was having engine trouble while parked on a street near TERESA Thornhill's house. When she approached to see if he needed help, he grabbed her and tried to pull her into his van. TERESA Thornhill was strong enough to fight back, bit his arm, and ran home. Even though Black escaped on that day, TERESA Thornhill had her day in court. She and many other witnesses testified against Robert Black, and he received a life sentence. He died of a heart attack in 2016. Number 4. CORAZON AMURAO. In 1966, Richard Speck's murder spree lasted a gruesome and terrifying 6 hours. Out of 9 nurses, CORAZON AMURAO was the lone survivor during the South Chicago Community Hospital massacre. After trespassing on the home, Robert Speck calmly knocked on AMURAO's bedroom door. When she answered, he proceeded to round up the nurses from each of their rooms, leading them one by one to separate rooms in the house where 8 nurses sadly met their tragic end. CORAZON AMURAO was an exchange student from the Philippines who, along with 2 other Filipino nurses, Valentina Pajan and Marlita Gargullo, came to the United States to work. After following her usual routine of washing her clothes and writing letters to her family back in the Philippines, she decided to head to bed in the room she shared with Marlita Gargullo. Their routine and peaceful nights would soon be disrupted on the evening of July 13, 1966. During the nurse's terrifying incident, CORAZON AMURAO hid under a bed and played dead. Richard Speck was so intoxicated that night that he said he lost count of the women. CORAZON AMURAO fled the scene and found help. She provided a sketch of the suspect, including details about his tattoo. She testified against him in court, and he was convicted of 8 murders and sentenced to death. It was later overturned and changed to 8 consecutive terms in prison. Number 3. Kate MOIR. In 1986, David and Catherine Burney were 2 Australian serial killers that did disgusting and unspeakable acts. During this time, Kate MOIR was abducted by the couple and brought back to their home, where she was tortured and even forced to sleep in bed with them after. One day, Kate made a daring escape out of a window when David was at work and Catherine was out buying drugs. After the escape, police didn't believe her story, but thanks to some details she remembered, she was able to convince the police of her terrifying experience. What were the details? They had watched Rocky on VHS and listened to the band Dire Straits. The movie was still in the VHS player and the record was still in the player when police searched the house. She can mention that she saw David's name on a medicine bottle. During the investigation, David confessed to 4 murders and the couple was sentenced to 4 terms of life imprisonment. Number 2. Carol Duranch. In 1974, Carol Duranch, a resident of Salt Lake City, Utah, narrowly escaped the clutches of one of the most diabolical serial killers of all time, Ted Bundy. Dressed as a police officer, Bundy approached Duranch in a parking lot, explained that her car had almost been stolen, and said she needed to file a report with him. She followed him to his Volkswagen and got inside, where he quickly handcuffed her and tried to strike her with a crowbar. However, Derange resisted and fled. Her story provided police with important details about Bundy's abduction techniques, and in 1975, an officer pulled over Bundy in his Volkswagen, which they knew about from Derange's report, in which they found handcuffs. They arrested Bundy. Derange identified him as the culprit, and he was put behind bars. Even though he later escaped from prison, he was recaptured in 1978. After confessing to killing 28 women, he was sentenced to death and executed in Florida in 1989. Number 1. Tracy Edwards. When Milwaukee, Wisconsin, police officers saw a man running down the street in handcuffs in 1991, little did they know what they were getting into. That man, Tracy Edwards, told them that he had just escaped being murdered by another man, Jeffrey Dahmer. Edwards led police back to Dahmer's home, where they found severed heads in his fridge and freezer, among other dismembered body parts. Edwards was a crucial witness in the case against the cannibal and serial killer, who confessed to 17 gruesome murders and was sentenced to 15 life terms. Dahmer was killed by another inmate in 1994. So there you have it, the 7 brave souls that emerge as beacons of hope. The survivors who faced unimaginable horrors and lived to tell their stories. The 7 serial killer survivors. Their stories are chilling and their experiences harrowing. Thank you for joining us at the Spooky Lab. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more spooky adventures.